The discovery. Hannah Reeves wasn't looking for trouble. As the captain of the salvage vessel Wayward Scrap, she was simply following the money. The edge of the Uit cloud wasn't exactly prime real estate, but it was where forgotten things drifted, and forgotten things often had value to the right buyer. "Captain, you're going to want to see this," called Devon, her navigator and resident tech expert. His voice carried an unusual edge that made Hannah look up from her inventory logs. "What is it now? Another abandoned mining rig?" she asked, pushing away from her desk and floating through the low gravity toward the bridge. "Negative, well, you should just see it," Devon replied, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. The image showed something massive drifting silently against the backdrop of distant stars. It wasn't the typical cylindrical shape of human vessels, nor the utilitarian blocks of mining platforms. This was something elegant and deadly, sleek curves of midnight black material interrupted by what looked like crystalline veins pulsing with faint blue light. "Is that what I think it is?" Hannah whispered, leaning closer to the display. "If you're thinking alien warship that shouldn't exist, then yes," Devon said, fingers dancing across the control panel. "It's not matching any known designs in our database, not Centaurian, not Proximan, not even theoretical." Hannah's heart raced. First contact with the Centaurians had happened 15 years ago, followed by the Proximans 2 years later. Both were humanoid species, technologically comparable to Earth's colonies. But this was something else entirely. "Life signs?" she asked. "None that our sensors can detect, but there's definitely power running through that thing. Low level but consistent. And the hull material is, well, it's not registering as matter as we understand it." Hannah made her decision quickly. "Prep the shuttle, I want a closer look." "Captain, protocol states." "Protocol can wait. If we call this in, CorpSec will lock this sector down faster than you can say bonus pay. I want first dibs." 3 hours later, Hannah guided their shuttle alongside the colossal vessel. Up close, the ship was even more intimidating, easily 2 kilometers long, with what appeared to be weapon emplacements that could vaporize a small moon. "Docking clamps aren't finding purchase," Hannah muttered, manually piloting closer to what seemed like a hangar bay. "We'll have to maglock and cut our way in." "Assuming that's even possible," Devon replied, eyeing the strange material of the hull. "Our scanners can't determine its composition." "Only one way to find out," Hannah said with a grin that didn't reach her eyes. They suited up in their EVA gear, the older models that still had mechanical backups in case of electronic failure. Hannah had learned that lesson the hard way during the Callisto incident. Devon carried their portable scanner and emergency beacon, while Hannah took the plasma cutter and sidearm, standard procedure for unknown derelicts. The maglocks engaged with a satisfying clunk against the alien hull, which, despite its unusual properties, at least responded to magnetism. Hannah activated her plasma cutter, expecting resistance. To her surprise, the beam sliced through the material like it was nothing more than mist. "That's not normal," Devon whispered through the comm. "Nothing about this is normal," Hannah replied. "Stay alert." They entered through the freshly cut opening, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness inside. Gravity suddenly pulled at them, not Earth standard, but close enough to make movement comfortable. "It has functioning gravity generators after who knows how long adrift," Devon said, adjusting his stance. "Impressive engineering." The interior was a maze of corridors that seemed to shift subtly when not directly observed. The walls were the same midnight material as the exterior, but here the crystalline veins were more pronounced, pulsing with that same ethereal blue light. "These markings," Hannah said, gesturing to intricate patterns etched into the walls. "They look like writing or circuit diagrams or both." Devon ran his scanner over them. "The patterns are changing in response to our presence. I think the ship is watching us." They ventured deeper, following the pulsing light that seemed to grow stronger the further they went. The corridors gradually widened until they found themselves in what could only be described as a grand hall. Enormous viewports lined one wall, offering a panoramic view of the void beyond. The opposite wall was dominated by intricate machinery that hummed with quiet energy. Central Command, maybe? Devon suggested, approaching one of the console-like structures with caution. Or their equivalent, Hannah agreed. Her attention was drawn to a raised platform at the far end of the hall where the blue light converged most intensely. As they approached, the platform revealed itself to be some sort of stasis chamber. Inside, suspended in a field of shimmering energy, was a humanoid figure. Female, by human standards, but with distinctly non-human features. Iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water, six-fingered hands, and a cranial structure that extended gracefully backward. "Is she alive?" Devon whispered, his scanner working overtime. "The pod is maintaining minimal life support functions," Hannah said, examining the controls that had illuminated at their approach. "I think she's in some kind of suspended animation." The markings around the pod began to pulse more rapidly, and the energy field flickered. "Captain, I don't think we should." Before Devon could finish, Hannah's hand brushed against a crystal that jutted from the console. It responded to her touch, flaring brilliantly. The energy field collapsed, and the alien woman's eyes snapped open, eyes with no pupils, just swirling galaxies of silver and blue. "Vazrathil Neskordath," she spoke, her voice resonating not through the air but directly in their minds. Hannah stepped back, hand instinctively moving to her sidearm. "We don't understand." The alien tilted her head, studying them with those unsettling eyes. After a moment, she spoke again, and this time the words were recognizable. "Travelers, not of the void, not of the enemy." Her mental voice was melodic but carried the weight of countless millennia. "How long have I slumbered?" "We don't know," Hannah admitted. "We just found your ship. Who are you?" "I am Nyareth, Queen Sentinel of the Luminary Concordance." The alien rose from the pod with fluid grace. Standing, she towered over them, nearly 7 feet tall. "This vessel is the Eternal Vigil, last warship of the Concordance fleet." "I am Nyareth, Queen Sentinel of the Luminary Concordance." The alien rose from the pod with fluid grace. Standing, she towered over them, nearly 7 feet tall. "This vessel is the Eternal Vigil, last warship of the Concordance fleet." "What happened to your people?" Devon asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. Nyareth's expression shifted to something like sorrow. "The Void Choir happened, an enemy beyond comprehension. They sing the song that unmakes reality." She gestured to the viewports where the stars seemed to shimmer unnaturally. "I was sealed in stasis, the last defense, waiting for the prophesied awakeners." Hannah exchanged glances with Devon. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're just salvagers. We found your ship by accident." "There are no accidents in the Great Tapestry," Nyareth replied enigmatically. She approached a wall that immediately transformed into a star map unlike any they had ever seen. "The Void Choir sleeps between dimensions, but they stir now. Your presence here at this moment was written in the cosmic weave eons ago." Suddenly the ship trembled violently. The blue light pulsed erratically, and alarms, or what they assumed were alarms, began to sound. "What's happening?" Hannah demanded, bracing herself against a console. "The Eternal Vigil recognizes my awakening," Nyareth explained, her hands dancing over various crystals. "It begins the revival protocols, but the ship has been dormant too long. Systems are failing." Another, stronger tremor shook the vessel. Sections of the ceiling began to collapse as the midnight material turned brittle and crumbled. "We need to leave," Devon shouted over the cacophony of alien alarms. Nyareth turned to them, her galaxy eyes wide. "The ship cannot be saved, but its purpose must continue. I must go with you." "To our ship?" Hannah asked incredulously. "We barely understand what you are." "Understanding will come," Nyareth replied calmly, even as chaos erupted around them. "But if I perish here, your kind, all kinds, will face the choir alone." A massive section of the wall collapsed, revealing the void of space beyond. Emergency force fields flickered into existence, saving them from explosive decompression, but they wouldn't hold for long. "Fine," Hannah decided, "but you follow my lead, understand?" They raced back through the deteriorating corridors, which seemed to rearrange themselves to provide the shortest path to their entry point. As they ran, Nyareth spoke urgently. The ship contains the Concordance archives, all our knowledge, our history, our weapons against the choir. We cannot leave it behind. We don't have time to download your entire civilization, Hannah protested. Nyareth reached out, touching the wall. A small section detached itself, forming a crystal about the size of a human fist. The archives adapt. This will suffice. They reached their shuttle just as the alien vessel began to break apart in earnest. As they disengaged the maglocks, Hannah watched through the viewport as sections of the mighty warship dissolved into shimmering particles that scattered like cosmic dust. "What's happening to it?" she asked as Devon piloted them back toward the wayward scrap. "The eternal vigil returns to the quantum foam," Nyareth explained, her voice heavy with what seemed like grief. "Its physical form was maintained only by my presence within. Now it rejoins the cosmic background." As they docked with the wayward scrap, Hannah couldn't help but feel they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The universe had just become infinitely larger and more dangerous. "Well," she said, leading their alien passenger toward the ship's common room. "Welcome aboard the wayward scrap, Your Majesty. It's not exactly a royal starship, but it's home." Nyareth regarded the utilitarian human vessel with curious eyes. "It is, alive with purpose, as are you." She turned to Hannah with an intensity that made the captain step back. "Captain Hannah Reeves, you may not believe in destiny, but destiny believes in you. The threads of fate have brought us together because the song of the void approaches, and we must prepare your world for what comes." Devon looked nervously at Hannah. "Captain, what exactly have we gotten ourselves into?" Hannah sighed, watching as the last particles of the alien warship dispersed into the darkness of space. "Something way above our pay grade, Devon. Something way above our pay grade." Alliance. The journey back to New Horizons Station took 3 days. 3 days of uncomfortable silence, punctuated by increasingly bizarre revelations. Nyareth spent hours studying the wayward scrap systems with curious fascination, while Hannah and Devon attempted to process what they'd stumbled upon. "So let me get this straight," Hannah said during their final meal before arrival. "Your people, the Luminari, fought a war against these void choir beings for thousands of years." Nyareth nodded, her iridescent skin reflecting the cabin's harsh lighting. "The choir exists between realities. They feed on the potential energy of sentient life, futures that might have been, choices unmade. They sing a song that unravels possibility." "And they wiped out your entire civilization?" Devon asked, his food forgotten as he recorded every word. "Not entirely," Nyareth corrected. "The Luminari concordance was vast, spanning what you would call galaxies. When the choir breached our defenses, we scattered. Some fled to pocket dimensions, others merged with quantum substrates. I remained with the eternal vigil as guardian of the archives, placed in stasis until the prophesied awakeners arrived." Hannah rubbed her temples. "But you keep saying we're not random salvagers, that we were prophesied. How is that possible when our species have never met?" Nyareth's galaxy eyes seemed to look through her rather than at her. "Time is not linear for the Luminari. We see threads, possibilities, patterns in the cosmic weave. Your arrival was one such pattern glimpsed eons ago." "That's convenient," Hannah muttered. "Approaching New Horizons Station," announced the ship's AI, "preparing docking procedures." Hannah stood, her expression serious. "We need to discuss what happens next. New Horizon is an independent trading post, but it's still governed by Earth Alliance protocols. An alien queen from a supposedly extinct civilization is going to raise some alarms. Not to mention her warnings about a reality-unmaking enemy," Devon added. "I understand your concern," Nyareth said, rising with fluid grace. "But the choir's incursion into this reality has already begun. Small rifts, barely perceptible but growing. We must alert your leaders." Hannah sighed. "And that's exactly what we'll do, but carefully, let me handle the talking." New Horizons Station was a massive rotating cylinder nestled in Earth's L5 point. A bustling hub of commerce where humanity intersected with the handful of alien species they'd encountered, since achieving faster-than-light travel. The wayward scrap docked in the salvage quadrant, where customs inspections were notoriously lax. "Stay here," Hannah instructed Nyareth. "Devin and I will clear customs and then bring back documentation. We'll register you as a consultant." "The choir will not wait for bureaucracy," Nyareth warned, but remained seated. Clearing customs was surprisingly easy, until they reached station security's office. Instead of the usual board officer, they found Commander Jackson Frost waiting for them, his craggy face locked in a perpetual frown. "Captain Reeves," he said, not bothering to stand. "Interesting energy readings from your salvage trip. Care to explain?" Hannah maintained her composure. "Just found an unusual derelict with some functioning systems. Nothing illegal." "And yet," Frost continued, sliding a tablet across his desk, "our long-range scanners detected a quantum dispersion event precisely where your ship was located. The kind of energy signature our scientists have been theorizing might accompany interdimensional phenomena." Devin shifted uncomfortably beside her. Hannah kept her expression neutral. "I'm not a physicist, Commander. We found something, we scavenged what we could, and now we're back. Standard procedure." Frost's eyes narrowed. "There's also the matter of an additional life form aboard your vessel, one that doesn't match any known biosignature." Hannah's heart sank. So much for discretion. "Show me," Frost demanded. 20 minutes later, Nyareth stood before a hastily assembled council of station officials, security personnel, and scientific experts. The archive's crystal pulsed gently in her six-fingered hand as she explained, with remarkable patience, the nature of the void choir. "They exist in the spaces between what you perceive as reality," she said. "Their consciousness spans dimensions, but they manifest in our universe as spatial distortions, rifts that, if left unchecked, will expand exponentially." Dr. Ileana Vargas, the station's chief xenobiologist, studied her readings with increasing alarm. "These physiological markers. Your species evolved in conditions we can barely comprehend. Higher dimensional awareness, quantum entanglement at the cellular level." "Fascinating biology aside," Frost interrupted, "you're telling us that some interdimensional enemy is coming to, what, eat our potential futures?" "In essence, yes," Nyareth confirmed. "The choir consumes the energy of choice of potential. They unmake what could be, leaving only the immutable past." "And we're supposed to take your word for this?" Frost challenged. Nyareth's expression remained serene. "The evidence is already manifesting. Observe your own astronomical data from the past solar cycle. Gravitational anomalies, inexplicable cosmic background radiation fluctuations." "Sir," came a panicked voice, "massive spatial anomaly forming in Sector 7. It's like space itself is tearing open." Nyareth's galaxy eyes widened. "They've found us. The archives, they sensed the archives." The station shuddered again, more violently this time. The view screens around the room flickered to show external camera feeds and the impossible sight beyond. A rift hung in space near the station, not blackness but something worse, an absence, a void where reality simply stopped. "Evacuation protocols now," Frost ordered, already moving toward the command center. "It's too late," Nyareth said quietly. "The incursion has begun." What followed was chaos. The station's emergency systems activated, but they were designed for hull breaches and radiation leaks, not tears in the fabric of reality. The rift expanded slowly, consuming nearby sensor arrays and communication satellites. In the command center, Frost coordinated evacuation procedures while Hannah, Devin, and Nyareth studied the phenomenon. "Can we seal it somehow?" Hannah asked. "Your people fought these things, you must have weapons, strategies." Nyareth held up the archive's crystal. "We do, but implementing them requires technology your civilization doesn't possess." She paused, considering. "Unless—" "Unless what?" Devin pressed. "The wayward scrap," Nyareth said. "Its systems are primitive but adaptable. If we can integrate the archives with your ship's core, we might create a resonance field to destabilize the rift." "You want to turn my salvage vessel into an interdimensional weapon?" Hannah asked incredulously. I want to save this station, Nyareth replied simply, and billions beyond it. Frost rejoined them, his expression grim. Evacuation has begun, but we have over 10,000 people here. We need time. Hannah made her decision. Commander, I need station resources. Energy cells, quantum processors, anything you can spare. We're going to try something. What exactly? Frost demanded. Something desperate, Hannah replied honestly. Hours later, the wayward scrap bore little resemblance to the scrappy salvage vessel it had been. Station engineers had integrated experimental tech from the research sectors. Nyareth's archives crystal pulsed at the heart of it all, connected to the ship's power core with a web of improvised interfaces. This is insanity, Devon muttered, rerouting power through systems never designed to handle such loads. Probably, Hannah agreed, checking the reinforced viewport where the rift was now clearly visible, a wound in reality that seemed to pulse with malevolent awareness. But what choice do we have? Nyareth worked with inhuman speed, her six-fingered hands dancing over controls, weaving luminary knowledge into human technology. The resonance field will disrupt the choir's harmonic intrusion, she explained, but we must deliver it directly to the rift's focal point. Meaning we fly straight into that thing, Hannah clarified. Yes, Nyareth confirmed, and then activate the field at precisely the right moment. And our chances of survival? Devon asked. Nyareth hesitated just long enough for them to understand. Right, Hannah sighed. Well, I didn't become a salvager because I craved security. Commander Frost's voice came through the comm. Station evacuation is at 60%. We need another hour minimum. The rift will encompass the station in 20 minutes, Nyareth countered. We must act now. Hannah took her position at the helm. Devon, you should join the evacuation shuttles. Her navigator shook his head. No way, Captain. We found this mess together. We'll fix it together. With final adjustments made, they disengaged from the station. The wayward scrap moved slowly toward the rift, its engines struggling under the modified load. As they approached, Hannah felt it, a strange pressure in her mind, like someone humming just below the threshold of hearing. What is that? She whispered. The choir, Nyareth explained, her voice tight. They sense us, they sing to unmake us. The pressure increased, becoming almost painful. Visions flashed through Hannah's mind, possibilities, futures that might have been, herself as a child again, as an alliance officer instead of a salvager, dead in a dozen different ways, never born at all. Focus, Nyareth commanded, her mental voice cutting through the confusion. They attack by unraveling your sense of self, your timeline. Remember who you are here and now. Devon groaned, clutching his head. It's like they're trying to erase me. 500 meters to focal point, the ship's AI announced calmly, oblivious to their mental anguish. The rift loomed before them, no longer just an absence but a presence, a vast, impossible geometry that hurt the eyes and mind alike. Within it, shapes moved that should not exist in three-dimensional space. 300 meters. Nyareth connected herself directly to the archive's crystal, her skin pulsing with the same blue light they'd seen in the eternal vigil. Preparing resonance field. Captain, steady course. Hannah fought through the mental assault, her hands white-knuckled on the controls. Steady, she confirmed, though her voice shook. 100 meters. The visions came faster now. Reality itself seemed to flicker around them. Hannah saw the ship both intact and destroyed, saw herself both living and dead, saw timelines branching and collapsing like waves against rocks. 50 meters, focal point approaching. Now, Nyareth, Hannah shouted, or thought she shouted. The boundary between thought and action was blurring. Nyareth's galaxy eyes flared with blinding light. Vantar Nes Kordath, she cried, ancient words of power as she activated the resonance field. The wayward scrap shuddered as energy coursed through its modified systems. The archive's crystal shattered, releasing its stored knowledge in a blast of pure information. The resonance field expanded outward in a sphere of iridescent light. When it reached the rift, reality hiccuped. There was no other word for it. A moment where everything, time, space, thought, simply paused, then snapped back into place. The rift contracted violently, folding in on itself with a sound like 1,000 voices suddenly silenced. The pressure in their minds vanished, leaving blessed quiet. Did we win? Devon asked weakly, blood trickling from his nose. Nyareth sagged against the console, her luminescence dimmed. Not won, delayed. The choir has been pushed back but not destroyed, never destroyed. Hannah stared at the now empty space where the rift had been. But we saved the station. For now, Nyareth agreed. And more importantly, we have proven that your technology, primitive though it is, can be adapted to combat them. Comms burst to life with Commander Frost's voice. Wayward scrap, what the hell just happened out there? Hannah managed a weak smile. We bought you some time, Commander, and we've got one hell of a story to tell. Hours later, as they sat in New Horizons' medical bay being treated for what the doctors could only describe as metaphysical trauma, Hannah turned to Nyareth. So what happens now? Your archives are gone. Not gone, Nyareth corrected. Distributed. The knowledge lives now in your systems, in your networks, seeds planted in fertile ground. She looked out the viewport toward the stars. The choir will return stronger and more determined, but now humanity knows, and knowing is the first step toward surviving. Why us? Hannah asked the question that had been bothering her since the beginning. Of all the species in all the galaxies, why was humanity prophesied to help you? Nyareth's galaxy eyes seemed to smile. Because of what you are, creatures of constant change, of adaptation, you embrace possibility where other species fear it. The choir feeds on potential, but you create it faster than they can consume it. Devon laughed weakly from his bed. So our stubborn unpredictability is finally good for something. It is your greatest weapon, Nyareth confirmed. And now, with the Luminari knowledge merged with your technology, we can prepare. Prepare for what? Hannah asked, though she already suspected the answer. War, Nyareth said simply. A war for reality itself. The choir sleeps again, but their slumber grows restless. When they fully awaken, all civilizations must stand together. Commander Frost entered the medical bay, his expression still stern but now tempered with something like respect. Earth Alliance Command has been briefed. They're sending a science vessel and a diplomatic envoy. He nodded to Nyareth. It seems, Your Majesty, that humanity is officially making first contact with the Luminari Concordance. What's left of it? She corrected gently. So we're ambassadors now? Hannah asked incredulously. Your heroes, Frost replied. Or possibly lunatics, time will tell. As he left, Hannah turned to gaze out the viewport at the endless field of stars. Somewhere out there, between the light and darkness, an enemy waited, an enemy that had nearly destroyed a civilization far more advanced than humanity's. We're not ready for this, she whispered. Nyareth placed her six-fingered hand on Hannah's shoulder. No one ever is, but readiness finds those who seek it. Her galaxy eyes met Hannah's. The threads of fate brought us together for a reason, Captain Reeves. This is just the beginning. Devon groaned dramatically, and here I thought salvaging was going to be boring.